In this video, I want to talk to you about how you can get children to listen part 2. So in the previous video, I spoke about this topic and I shared the techniques that I've learned from this man called Dr. Robin Booth, who is a parenting expert as well as a school principal. So today I want to share with you part 2 of whatever I've learned from him, because I find that his methods are really useful and most importantly, they are really empowering to children. And I wish to really share it with you, especially if you're a parent and you have children who are challenging. I believe every children is challenging, unless they are not normal. And yeah, I want to share this with you, and hopefully you can add this skill into your arsenal. So as parents, you know, children, every child is different. I know we deal with them differently according to their personality, and I believe that it's better to know many things, and then, you know, we can try to apply them and see which works and which sticks, and then we can continue to use that. Alright, so the previous video, I hope that you have watched it, and I hope that you have also applied some of the techniques that I've taught you. So to recap, the previous video, it was about telling children what to do to perform an action. And rather than just telling them what to do, rather than coming from a higher authority, like, you know, parent to a child, we give them 2 choices and we get them to choose. Alright, so that was mostly instructing them to perform an action. So in today's video, this is mostly to inform them or to tell them not to perform an action. So for example, you know, if the kids are standing on the sofa, you know, how do we tell them don't stand on the sofa or don't jump on the sofa? So something that's going to be very special in this video is that I'm not going to use the teleprompter. This is entirely scriptless and I'm really sharing from my heart. So I think you can tell that it is more authentic, you know, trying to create that connection with you. Alright, so I want to introduce you to the second technique and its purpose. So as mentioned, the first technique, it was telling them to perform an action, for example, to keep their toys after play or to have their dinner, to wash their hands. And sometimes we also encounter situations where, you know, our children performs an action and we want to discourage that. So for example, I have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, so I'm speaking from that context. But I'm sure that this techniques could also apply to children who are slightly older than that. So the context is that, you know, my children, I should have turned off this, my bad. So the context is that my children are very playful, you know, 2 and 3-year-olds, so they like to explore the house and they like to jump on the sofa, walk on the sofa, run on the sofa, and sometimes on the bed as well. And you know, it's dangerous, right? So previously, prior to understanding this technique that I'm about to share with you, I would tell them, hey, don't do this, hey, don't do this, hey, don't do this. And I realized that that is actually not a very effective way to communicate, okay? So I'm going to give you an example that, that Mr. Robin Booth actually shared. So he spoke about an incident in school one time where kids were returning back to the classroom from their break, and they were really excited, so they were actually running into the classroom. So the teacher saw that and said, hey kids, stop running. And you know what the kids start to do, what the children start to do? They start to hop into the classroom. And then the teacher said, hey kids, stop hopping. And then the children start to swim into the classroom. I mean, they are not literally swimming, but they're just playing around. And then the teacher had to say, hey students, stop swimming into the classroom. So you realize how much of this is a waste of time because of the lack of proper communication. In fact, what the teacher wants the children to do is to walk into the classroom slowly, gradually, you know, safely, and not to not run, nor not hop, nor not swim. Alright, and this is one of the biggest takeaway that I've gotten. You know, when my kids were jumping on the sofa, I'll say like, hey, stop jumping on the sofa. As you know, children, they like to play, and we don't want to be a wet blanket to them, right? So for example, if they are jumping, they are having fun, right? And we don't want to come across like we are stopping that fun. So what I've learned from Mr. Robin Booth is that there is also a technique, a methodology in terms of how you can tell them to not perform a certain action. So this is something that I'm going to teach you, alright, in this video. So the first thing that we say to them is that we want to explain the purpose of the object that they are interacting with. In my context, the sofa is the object. So the first thing to do is to tell them what is the purpose of this object. So I'll say, hey Charlie, I'm going to use the word Charlie. Hey Charlie, this sofa is for sitting or for lying down. Alright, so I'm trying to tell them that there is a purpose for this object that they're interacting with. And then I'll say that if you wish to jump, then the right place to jump is on the ground. We have a mat at home, M-A-T. So we say, hey, you can jump on the mat. And then I'll follow up with the technique that I taught in the previous video. Would you prefer to jump on the mat? Would you prefer to come down off the sofa to jump on the mat? Or do you want to lie down or sit on the sofa. Alright, so the technique is telling them what is the purpose of that object and then giving them an alternative, because we don't want to spoil the fun, right? So maybe they still want to jump and they can go ahead and jump on the mat itself. Another example that I want to give to you is during dinner time. So meal times are one of the most challenging parts of raising kids, right? Other than getting them to eat. The other thing that we can often encounter is when they start playing with the utensils, right? So like the fork or the spoon, and they start to hit the bowl, boom, 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 boom. And it gets really, I wouldn't use the word annoying, but it's about a meal etiquette, right? So I had to say, Charlie, this is a spoon. The purpose of the spoon is to eat. If you want to be hitting the plates with this, we use a toy, like a drumstick. Not the chicken drumstick, but a drumstick. And I'll say, Charlie, would you like to eat with the spoon? Or would you like me to give you a drumstick for you to play with after your meal? Alright, so I believe that this is a really good alternative as opposed to, hey, stop doing this, hey, stop doing this. From the child's perspective, it seems as though, oh, why is Papa stopping me from having fun? Because in their little world, they are just exploring, they are intrigued by the sound, they're intrigued by that velocity because they're testing out whatever that they have on their hands. So I think rather than just telling them, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, rather acknowledge that they're having fun and provide a proper outlet for them. Alright guys, so I think this is the entire topic that I want to share, and I hope that this is something that is helpful to you. And in terms of efficacy, the word efficacy, it is not as high as the previous technique that I taught in the previous video, but I do think that this is actually a very, very good technique, because it does not just empower them by giving them another option, but it helps them to understand the purpose of the object as well. So as they grow up, they begin to understand that every object or everything that they interact with has a purpose, and they are able to interact the object with the right purpose. For example, I mean, you buy a vacuum cleaner, right? You open up the manual and you read how to operate it. I mean, technically you can use the vacuum cleaner any way you want, but you want to use it according to how the manual specifies so that you can get the maximum out of its utility, right? So in the same way, when we teach our children about the utility of a certain object, what it's being designed for, and giving them options is going to really help them in the way they think, in the way that they interact with people in the future as well. Alright guys, I hope that this video was helpful for you, and feel free to tell me what you think about this new video format, and I'll see you in the next video. Alright, cheers, see you, bye.